Hey everyone, Pete Calandra here. Today's video, we're going to take a look at one particular technique, and it's going to build upon the video I made last week about some of Bill Evans's concepts and how he moves chords around. And we're going to be taking a look at something that he does in the song My Romance on many of his albums. And My Romance is a song from a 1935 musical called Jumbo, and it was written by Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart. So it's a song that in 1925 is 90 years old. And what's great about some of these old songs, as many of you probably know, they contain incredibly sophisticated harmonies and also many possibilities for altering those harmonies a bit. And that's why many jazz musicians use them historically as a basis for their performances. Now, if you think about popular music of the time that Bill was growing up, you'll find that there was a lot of music that had, there was certainly big band music, there was a small ensemble jazz. Actually, there's a whole thing that Phil Schaap, the jazz historian, does or did when he was alive about how there was a 6-month period of time where bebop was actually the popular music of the day. But if you take a listen to, let's say, the way Frank Sinatra performs some of the classic songs from the American Songbook, and you listen to the orchestrations of Gordon Jenkins, Johnny Costa, and of course the great Nelson Riddle, you'll see that there is often the melody, there's a space, and then the next phrase of the melody. And typically what all the great orchestrators do is they fill in that space to lead us into the next phrase. And this is a technique that we're going to go on about today, and how Bill does that in one particular part of this song. So it'll be a short video and we're going to get into it, but let's take care of some business. If you like this video, give a thumbs up. For more content, please subscribe, and to be notified, ring that bell. In the description box below, there is a PDF for a free study guide. What you see on the screen, you'll be able to download that and use that for your own edification, for your own study. You can also, if you choose to feel generous, you can buy me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that as well. Anyway, once again, I've been Pete Calandra. Thanks so much for watching, and let's get right into it. And that was the first verse of My Romance, definitely influenced by Bill Evans, but some stuff transcribed fairly closely for the purposes of this demonstration, and some stuff my own. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on this area right here. And this is a little passage, a little fill that Bill does, much like the great arrangers that I mentioned in the preamble would do. So let's take it from this part of the melody. So what that is, we're on the 4 chord, the F, because we're in the key of C, 2, 5, 1, and now we want to get back to that 4 chord. And what Bill does is he plays this nice little melodic figure, right? And that is a pentatonic scale in C, F, that's A, G, E, D, C. And he harmonizes that with 7th chords. And now we change to a first inversion chord. And what are those chords? Those chords are F major, E half diminished 7th, C7, B flat major 7th, and reaching our F major 7th with the A in the bass. What's going on there? Well, typically to get from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, you would do a 2-5 in F, which would be G minor, C7 or C9, F. What Bill does is he looks at that and he thinks, okay, the difference between C and F is a B flat. In other words, that's the C major scale. The F major scale has all the same notes, except for this note is flat. So when he picks his chords, he knows that he's moving to that F major tonality briefly. And to emphasize that he's going there, he starts adding that B flat into these chords. Right, that sounds that moves us right to the 4 chord, the F major, as opposed to if I made those B flats all natural. Right, that doesn't move us there. That's a concept that you want to grab, that when he's going from the 1 chord to a structural 4 chord, which is what this is here, he is adding the accidental of that 4 chord, the key that it would be if that 4 chord was tonic. Right, and I'm not going to talk about these chords here. I just want to focus in on this. This is the same as in the last video. If you want me to go over these kinds of chords, leave a comment before and I'll do a lesson on them, but they're fairly standard. So the first thing you want to do is you want to start getting familiar with this, right? And the concept is that there's a melodic phrase, the melody takes a temporary pause, and there's some time before the next bit of the melody comes in, and you want to fill that time in with something interesting. And this is one of the things that Bill came up with. So you want to learn this in all 12 keys, right? And I've got you started here. We've got it here in D flat major. Right, and continue on. And then I've got one here in D major. And that's great. So what you're doing here with this is you're just getting the concept and these chords in your fingers. Let's now take the next step, because to really understand and assimilate this, you not only need to get the concept in mind, having these melodic phrases that connect different sections of the song in between the melody and harmonizing them, you need to understand what these chords really are. And the way to do that is to break them down and make them more manageable. And so one way that I'm going to do that is I am going to put them all in close position. So I'm going to take that first chord that has the F on the bottom, and I'm going to jump that F up an octave. And I'm going to follow the same pattern with the rest of these chords. And that gives us close position chords here. So we've got our F major 7th in second inversion, E half diminished seventh in second inversion, C7 in second inversion. Let me play those cleanly. And then B flat major 7th in second inversion. And now we're going to change because we're just moving down stepwise in the melody. So we've got an F major 7th in third inversion, and then going to the F minor 7th, and then to C major 7th. Right, so you see what I did there? I put a G in the bass over this first 2 chords, a C in the bass over these 2 chords, and then an F and a C. And then you can continue on with those other chords if you want. They move to a 5-note texture, and this is kind of cool. And then you would just go through and change the inversion. So you'll have 4 different ways to go through those chords. So now the second way, we'll take this bottom note and jump it up an octave, and we get this. Right, that's this bit here. Change stuff when you don't like the way it sounds, or if you want to make it sound different. So what I'm doing here, and take that C and just go down a half step. So that is a nice line there. And then you just continue on with that inversion. And then we'll start here with the first chord in the root position. And now in the first inversion, right here. Now, there are multiple ways to learn seventh chords. There's a book that I've worked with where it's very rote and it's very thorough and very exhaustive and exhausting at the same time. But where you play these things, then you do it in F, right? And you go through all 12 keys. And once you got this down, you do it in circle of fifths. So you do root position, then first inversion. And I can do these because I've been practicing these for years on and off. Second inversion. You just get these in your hands. And then finally, third inversion. Etc. You do that with major seventh chords, dominant seventh chords, minor seventh chords, half diminished seventh chords, or minor chord with a flat 5, and diminished chords, diminished seventh chords. And that's one way to get all of these chord shapes into your hands, and you do it with both hands. Another way is to do it in context, and that's what this kind of work does. Because what you're doing here, if we look at all these chord qualities, we have major sevenths, dominant sevenths, another inversion of a major seventh, right? We have a half diminished or a minor seventh with a flat 5, and we have a minor seventh. So the only chord we don't have here of the 5 standard seventh chords, although there are many more, is the diminished seventh, right? So we've got major seventh, half diminished seventh, dominant seventh, major seventh, and minor seventh. So this is a way to practice these things in all inversions in a context, which is a really great way to learn it. And then the next thing you do is you do the drop 2 chords, right? So this is the one that we transcribed, or I transcribed. And then up to the next inversion. Now, here's where your ear has to come into play. Do the exact inversion change, I mean. But you get it down like this is exact, but you listen, because this chord here, I don't like the way that sounds. So if I go from, that's this chord here, that I don't like the C on the top. I don't like this minor ninth in the outer voices here. So I'm going to change that. So let me play something. Right? So I just made one little note change. I changed the C to a D, and then we have an E minor seventh in second inversion, and the same on the next chord, an E minor seventh in first inversion. And that sounds much better. And you can take that a step further. Right? And so over here, I'm playing this the same, and then I'm making this into a B natural or a C flat. So that gives us a minor seventh flat 5. All right. And you can also do it as a suspension, sort of like. So that works. Using this material and getting the most you can out of it. And you just go through the whole thing and you find those spots that need to be changed. Like this is not interesting. Like I don't like that chord. That one's okay. And I don't like that chord. So how would I change this one? Yeah, I'd have to work that out, but yeah, so I'd make this a D minor right here, and then a D diminished. Now I'd get my diminished seventh. to an A minor, right? So then it would end up something like this. Yeah. Do, 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 do. And then this one right here with the 7th in the bass or in the bottom note. I like this, right? I made this C into a B natural. That works well. I'm not a big fan of this. So I'd have to change that and work that out differently. But I think you get the idea. And then again, all 12 keys and you're good to go. The next thing I'd like to talk about is close position F major 7th, right, in root position. You take the 2nd from the top and the 4th from the top and you drop those down an octave. And then you get a voicing like this. Right? And that's kind of like a Stan Kenton voicing, and that sounds more rich or better down a little bit lower, those voicings. Okay, so this is the first bit of work you do. Then the next bit of work you do is you expand on the concept. So you're moving from a 1 chord to a 4 chord, and you're introducing that one accidental that's going to get you there. So let's take a look at this. So right here at measure 60 on the bottom here, I've got this melodic figure. So I've got my B flat right there, right? And if I was going to do close position chords, I might do something like this. And I am going to add a C sharp in there. But let's take a listen. And I'll play the bass note with my left hand. And that sounds great. Now let's do our drop 2. If we want to simplify that, my dog is barking. What we could do is we could turn these into half notes. So I'm taking these 2 chords and then these 2 chords. So we'll get something like this. And drop 2 it. And this is a good place to start with transposition, right? These are very simple, and you can work these out much quicker than the longer lines. So even if you do something like that to get started, but just getting these in all keys, you're learning how to harmonize melodic figures, and you're also learning all these chord shapes and chord qualities in different inversions in all the keys. So that's really helpful because you're doing it in context. So let's see about if I improvise something and use some of these figures to get to the 4 chord. That's using this one. Let's try this. So you see how that works really nicely. And let's try these 2 examples. And I'll just go back and forth. I won't talk in between them. Yeah, and so eventually you'll start improvising this. Okay, so let's take a look at one more example today, and we're going to look at using this with a diminished scale. So everybody should know what a diminished scale is, just alternating half steps and whole steps. And if we look right here, I've got a line based on the diminished scale, but the diminished scale here, if we start on the F sharp, right? Half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. And I should have written it out as a scale, but instead I've written this line here, which is really nice, I think. And it's a beautiful 2/5 line. And now if we harmonize that right here, I've changed these to quarter notes so that they're a little bit less, a little bit easier to play on the fingers rather than trying to play them quickly as eighth notes. And I'll play this. So these are close position chords, and I'll play the bass line in my left hand. Okay, so what do we have here? So we've got our G for a bar, C for a bar, and an F for a bar. So big picture, it's a G minor, C7 to F major 7th. But if we look at it closely, we've got a diminished 7th chord here, right? So that's an F sharp diminished 7th leading to a G minor 7th in first inversion, D minor 7th in third inversion, then back to G minor 7th, but this time in second inversion. Then that F sharp diminished 7th chord, right there. And now this next chord on this measure is really interesting because you have C in the bass, you have E, C, E, G, excuse me, C and E flat. Now, typically that sounds like a little bit like a sharp 9 chord, but that typically would have a flat 7, like a dominant 7th in it. So you would typically hear a sharp 9 chord with something like this. Would have the dominant 7th in there, or the B flat. That's like pick up the pieces chord right there. Boot up, bop, beat up, beat up, boot up. Okay, so what is this? Well, I look at these two chords together, and the bottom two notes are the same. They're G and E. And what I'm doing here is on the downbeat, it's almost like an appoggiatura, an accent or a dissonant note on the beat that resolves to the chord tones. Right? So it goes from here to here, right? It goes from this sonority to this E diminished 7th chord, and then you do the same thing down. Right? So, oops. So that works out really well. Okay, moving forward down here, we'll take a look at the same line with drop 2, and then we're going to make some alterations here. But let's play it as it is. And I held these two notes together, those two, the C and the G and the C sharp and E together, instead of, it's just a little smoother. Now, we've got our drop 2 chords. So this chord here, this D minor 7th chord, when it's in drop 2, I'm not as happy with it. So what I'm going to do is make an alteration. I'm going to turn that into a diminished 7th chord, and then we're, I think, in a little bit better place musically. All right, so do that and use that in context the same way that we did the other ones. And let's see if I can improvise something again in the key of C and use something like that to navigate to the 4 chord. All right, that brings us to the end of this video. All 12 keys. Work this out. Again, there's a link in the description box for the PDF study guide. Please like, please subscribe. You'd help the channel out greatly. I've been doing this forever, and my channel is very slow growing. I don't get a lot of views, but I do think I put out important content, and I'm just going to keep doing it. But you'd greatly help me out. And please leave any comments down below. Experiment. Take the concepts. Come up with your own ideas. Work through them. All 12 keys. Check out the different inversions. I'll leave you with that. I have a few more of these coming up over the next few weeks, so I hope you enjoy them. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I've been Pete Calandra, and I'll catch you on the next one.